Do you ever get the feeling you look at the world differently from your friends? So, how was your holiday?
I have never seen such piercing blue skies. Not a cloud in the sky, not one. It's blue. I mean, I'll show you my photos. Every single photo is just blue. It's just amazing.
Am I the only person who prefers clouds to blue skies? When I was a kid and my family went on holiday, I'd sit by the window of the plane so I could look out at the clouds. I wanted to jump. See if I could land on one of them. All kids love clouds. So why is it, when we're older, we seem to spend all our holiday time and money trying to get away from them?
I'd be happy if I never saw a cloud again, frankly.
When they're not being ignored, they're the topic of complaint. Clouds are pretty much viewed as a nuisance, blocking out the sun and blue sky. They ruin our chances of sunburn and melanomas. Clouds are the central theme of every doom and gloom metaphor. We talk about you having a cloud hanging over you, and there's nothing worse than there being a cloud on the horizon. We're always trying to chase the clouds away, and someone who's lost touch with the world has his head in the clouds. The list goes on and on. My name's Gavin Pritapini, and I see it as my self-appointed duty to change this sorry state of affairs. I want to challenge the delusion that the only good sky is a blue sky, because I think it would be dull. I think life would be dull if we just had to look up at cloudless monotony day after day after day. And that's why I started the Cloud Appreciation Society, to fight back against blue sky thinking. In this program, I want to take you on a journey of discovery. I hope to convince you that cloud spotting is without doubt one of the most pleasurable and life-affirming pastimes. Along the way, I'll not only show you my top 5 clouds and how they work, but also I'll try to prove the existence of a new type of cloud that I discovered when cloud spotters from around the world started to send me some amazing pictures. But getting a cloud officially recognized by meteorologists is something that hasn't been done for over half a century, so it's not going to be easy. Because this cloud is so elusive and rare. In fact, I like to think of it as the Yeti of cloud spotting. It's the 10 miles of atmosphere directly over our heads that's the stage for one of the greatest shows on Earth. Suspended over 2/3 of our planet's surface is an epic cast of infinitely varying forms, playing against a backdrop of night and day, 24/7, for over 4 billion years. Scaling higher than the tallest mountains, greater than all the oceans, more powerful than the mightiest volcanoes, clouds give our skies spectacle and drama. Clouds reveal the movement of air within the atmosphere. They're the bearers of fertility and nourishment, as well as the agents of terror and destruction. As the ever-present backdrop to our existence, clouds have played a cameo role throughout the entire history of religion, art, and culture. Now, I'm not a scientist or a meteorologist or anything like that. I am just someone who loves clouds, and I write about them, I give talks about them, I stand up for them. I started the Cloud Appreciation Society as a bit of a joke. I didn't think that there would be enough people who felt the same way. But surprisingly, I wasn't the sole member of my society for long. Now we've got this amazing network of members all across the world, from Finland to French Polynesia, from India to Iraq. And you know what? They're all just linked by one thing: a love of the sky.
My name is Harry Reid. I'm member number 8000 of the Cloud Appreciation Society.
Me llamo Araceli Galeano y estas.
Ich bin Boris, ich bin der Cloud Appreciation Society.
Hi, I'm Susan Thompson-Gates and I am the Cloud Appreciation
Mahtavaa katsoa tätä pilvien näytelmää.
There's nothing better if you have a spare moment to just go and look at the clouds.
Ich bin Dr. Thomas Dossler aus Solingen und ein Frauenarzt in Ruhestand.
Hi everyone, my name is Ajit Hassan, the president of Amateur Astronomers Association of Kurdistan and the member number 1687 in Cloud Appreciation Society.
But what does it really mean to be a cloud spotter?
I'm a member of the Cloud Appreciation Society because I just plain appreciate clouds.
Not all members do it from the ground. Like Akile and Marta, cloud spotting on their way to Senegal. For me, watching the clouds is an endlessly carefree and uplifting activity. And it's also something that can be enjoyed anywhere with a view of the sky. To some, this is just a kind of overcast day. It's a grey day, a cloudy day. But to me, I think it's a beautiful sky, and there's so much to see and read and enjoy in it. And right up here around the sun, there's just a fantastic changing mottled effect. You've got this cumulus cloud blowing over in front of the sun. Its edges, its crisp edges, actually evaporating away and becoming more fibrous and broken. And the light of the sun being filtered through different layers of cloud as they pass in front of it. And the overall cloud having a mottled effect. And look at all the different shades. I mean, right up here, you've got just a whole range of fantastic. It's like an abstract painting. And as random and whimsical as clouds might seem, identifying them is beautifully simple, because there are only three basic shapes to clouds. Cumulus. These are the puffy clouds with flat bottoms that build up in heaps. Stratus. The huge, featureless, horizontal sheets of cloud. And cirrus, named after the Latin for curl, and it's easy to see why. Their streaked appearance gives them the look of wavy hair. And though no two clouds are ever the same, they largely fall into one or more of these categories. Each has its own style and character. Some form as low down as sea level, others right up to the beginnings of space. And these cloud types remain pretty consistent throughout the world. Whether it's Florida or Iceland. Probably the most recognizable and best known of all the clouds is first up on my list, the cumulus. Dense and well-defined, this low-level cloud is such a familiar feature of sunny afternoons that it's referred to as the fair weather cloud. Ideal for kids' drawings and weather map graphics. It's a design classic. Beautiful, crisp, white, cauliflower mounds. The cumulus cloud is the most light-hearted of all the cloud types, and it's the best one for finding shapes in. Its flat bottom and rotund top make it the cutest in the sky. But beware, this humble little cloud can easily turn into a feisty one. If the air around is unstable, it can grow from the middle, rising up in towers to become the biggest in its class. The cumulus congestus. If this happens before midday, there's a chance of a heavy shower in the afternoon, giving rise to the saying, in the morning mountains, in the afternoon fountains. Cumulus clouds can be found everywhere except the poles, where it's too cold for them to form. You can't be a cloud spotter and not love the cumulus. And the clue to how these beautiful cumulus clouds form comes from the fact that they appear on a sunny day. Because it's the sun warming the ground and causing thermals of air to lift off from it that give rise to cumulus clouds. It's a little bit like in a lava lamp. In the base of the lamp, a light bulb heats this oil that's mixed in with the water. And as the bulb at the bottom of the lamp warms the oil expands a little bit, becomes a little bit less dense than the water, and starts to float languidly up through the lamp. Although these are liquids, it's not a million miles away from what happens outside on a sunny day. Because it's the sun warming the ground and causing thermals of air to lift off from it that give rise to cumulus clouds. The sun warms the ground, and some parts of the ground heat the air more efficiently than others. So a ploughed field will warm the air above it more quickly than a bit of woodland. And that part of the warm field warms the air above it, which begins to rise in a bubble, just like the oil in the lamp. And as it rises, it expands. And as it expands, it cools. Until it's cool enough for some of the moisture in that rising pocket of air to appear as tiny water droplets. And that's when a cumulus forms. Like a giant ice cream sitting on an invisible cone of rising air. The cumulus is the cloud of choice for 11-year-old Emily Bell, member number 2042.
My favourite clouds are cumulus clouds. They have this kind of happy feel about them and never make you feel sad. Some look like things. In this picture, I see a baby elephant. I think that's an elephant poking his head over the mountain. This one looks like a flying elephant. And this one looks like an elephant just about to blow his trunk. This is another elephant. This one I thought looked like a baby duck, but Dad thought it looked a bit like an elephant.
Now look, what can you see? What sort of clouds can you see now? What are these, do you know? I'm encouraging my 2.5-year-old daughter Flora to share my interest in cloud spotting. That's right. Now, what we can see here, Floss, what we can see here is up there. Can you see right up there? Right up there? What are those ones, those wispy wispies? What are those called?
Cirrus.
Cirrus, that's right. And then what about these big, clumpy, fluffy ones here? One way or another, clouds figure in our earliest memories. Perhaps it's because, as babies lying on our backs, being pushed around in prams and buggies, we spend so much time gazing up at them. My earliest memory of clouds is staring out the window of my parents' car. I thought that men climbed up on giant ladders to harvest cotton wool so fine as to be weightless. Much later on, to my bitter disappointment, I discovered that they were made of something else. Water, the stuff responsible for all life on the planet. More specifically, clouds are made from water that's evaporated from the planet's surface by the heat of the sun. In fact, the equivalent of over 6 times the Mediterranean Ocean is up in our atmosphere at any one time. I thought that would be a bit worrying for the fairy tale character Chicken Licken, whose story revolved around his fear of the sky falling down. Maybe he did have a point. After all, it's curious how something so massive can seem to defy gravity. Here's Professor John Thorns, who's kindly offered to shed light on this worrying thought.
One of the amazing things about clouds is that they're so heavy, because water at the sort of height and temperature that we can see them in the sky is actually 1,000 times heavier than the air, and therefore a typical cumulus cloud weighs several thousand tons, and therefore in the old days scientists couldn't understand why the cloud didn't just plummet from the sky and fall on your head. But in reality the cloud is falling, but very, very slowly at what we call the terminal velocity, and there's a balance of forces between gravity pulling those water droplets down and the resistance and the friction of the air molecules acting against that. And so the cloud is falling, but only at a few centimeters a second. So it does look as though it's stationary in the sky, but it's not at all.
But only part of the moisture in the atmosphere is in the form of clouds. Most of it is water vapour, which is invisible. It's why you can have clear skies on the muggiest of days. And, as my kettle demonstrates, clouds form when some of that invisible water vapour condenses into the tiny water droplets that we can see. And how this happens isn't as obvious as you might think, because the answer lies in dirty air that has dust and impurities in it. It can be anything from smoke and pollution to salt particles blown up from the surface of the sea. Now, I've heard that there's not only a way of demonstrating that clouds need these particles to form, but also a way of creating a cloud in a bottle. Right, okay, here it is. How to make a cloud in a bottle. Ingredients. You need one clear plastic bottle. Take off the label because I don't want to have that in the way of the cloud. I don't know if this is going to work. I'm going to give it a go. You need some water and you need some matches. You never know, we might be able to make a cumulonimbus. And it says here, adult supervision required. There we go, the perfect cloud chamber. You start by placing just enough warm water in the bottle to cover the base of it. Then you want to introduce a bit of smoke. So you light a match, let it burn for a few seconds and blow it out. And then there's that smoke, the important ingredient. I'll just put the lid on quickly before it escapes. Then you need to do the bottle squeezing part, and that involves 6 or 7 brisk squeezes. I'm going to squeeze it, as it suggested, clear. Well, is it? And this, it says, apparently, is enough to make a cloud appear within the bottle. I think I need like a dark background to... wait a second. Okay, so how this is supposed to work is that you create an area of saturated air with a lot of moisture in it within the bottle. And the smoke particles are there to provide little nuclei onto which this moisture, this invisible water vapour in the bottle can condense into droplets. That is definite, that is a cloud. Each time you squeeze it, the air within the bottle warms slightly, and each time you release the pressure, the air expands and it cools. And it's that moment when it expands and it cools that all the moisture, or some of the moisture, can condense on these particles of smoke into little droplets. And that's how, at least that's what it says here, that's how you make a cloud in a bottle. Isn't that amazing? Wait a second, you can see some colours. That's iridescence. That's, as the light shines through, it's diffracted by the particles of that cloud, and it's caused the iridescent colours that you sometimes see that in the cloud in the sky around the edges. As the sunlight comes through, it can cause a kind of beautiful pastel rainbow colours. My cloud in a bottle has even made iridescence. That's beautiful.
Hello, my name is Klaus Nüchtern. I'm a journalist from Austria, and I'm a member of the Cloud Appreciation Society, which I can prove. Here's my certificate, number 30,220, that's me. Why am I a cloud spotter? Well, actually, I guess everybody is. I confess to being one, which is not such a difficult thing to do.
The second of my clouds is stratocumulus. Bold, dramatic, and endlessly entertaining, stratocumulus is a low cloud layer made up of clumps and patches. It often forms when a layer of warmer air above causes cumulus clouds to spread sideways and join up. They're probably the best ones to look at from an aeroplane. Flying over them, you can see the turrets rising up from a stratocumulus cloud, and it looks like some magical city in the sky. The ancient Greeks even had a name for this vaporous landscape: Nephelococcygia, or in English, Cloud Cuckoo Land. And if the air beneath the stratocumulus layer is hazy enough, then the results can be spectacular, if not divine. The sunlight bursting through the gaps creates a light effect sometimes referred to as the fingers of God, or as the meteorologists say, crepuscular rays. And when there's a low sun, the shadows and the colours across the top of a stratocumulus cloud can be some of the most beautiful in the sky. And no one loved the stratocumulus more than the artist who to my mind was the greatest ever cloud painter, John Constable. He painted this cloud study in the 1820s when meteorology was in its infancy. Yet Constable's understanding of a cloud's form and movement was astounding. There's that cliche of Inuits have 40 different words for snow. Well, I think Constable has many more than that, tones of grey, which he uses to depict the beautiful way that the light is filtered and scattered by clouds like this. This is a stratocumulus sky. It's one of his cloud studies. It's one of the clear examples why Constable is a true cloud spotter and a true connoisseur of the sky. But I'm sad to say, not all artists had the same passion for understanding clouds as Constable did. Take this painting. At first glance, you might think the artist knew their cirrus from their stratus. So John Brett, cloud spotter or not, is the question. First thing I like about it is that he's got these crepuscular rays, which are these rays of light that shine down on account of the shadows from the clouds. And they are a beautiful thing to see in the sky, and so I'm really pleased that John Brett has put those in his paintings. The other thing I like about it is the way the light plays on the surface of the sea. That's clearly John Brett's main it's the thing that's got him most excited in this painting. The thing that makes me think that perhaps he's not a true connoisseur of clouds is the fact that above and below this horizon line, right down the middle of the painting, they don't seem to match each other, because these spots of light, these torch beams that of sunlight that are coming down onto the sea surface, wouldn't appear with those sorts of clouds. I mean, those are cumulus clouds, humulus, little cumulus clouds, maybe a bit of stratocumulus down there further in the distance. But these sort of spots of light occur when you have a generally covered sky, a sky covered with clouds, stratocumulus clouds perhaps, with holes in them. And the holes allow the sunlight to shine down in these dramatic shafts of light which strike the sea in that way. So he's just got the sky from one day and the sea from another day and stuck them together. So, you know, a cloud spotter, but now not a cloud connoisseur.
This is more like it. Another constable.
Right, so this one's the opening of Waterloo Bridge, but you can see all the pomp and circumstance of that event, but that of course is totally irrelevant here. What's important is what Constable's doing in the sky, as ever. And the first thing that struck me about this one that I found quite pleasing, and another reason why Constable's a great cloud lover, is what he's done with the crepuscular rays here. At first glance, you might think he's got it wrong. You might think that Constable, the great cloud painter, had made a mistake. Because these crepuscular rays seem to kind of converge like that, down to a point, as opposed to what you normally see, which is crepuscular rays coming out, spreading like the fingers of a hand. And yet, when you look at where the sun is in this painting, which is up in the top left, you can see that the sun is kind of behind you as you look at the painting. And so as these rays converge off to the horizon, the perspective means that they would actually converge to a point on the horizon. So they're actually what's known as anti-crepuscular rays. It's when the sun is coming down and the rays, the shadows and the shafts of light from the clouds are converging as they go off towards the horizon. So this was before meteorologists had even given these anti-crepuscular rays a name. It's before they'd categorised them. And Constable, just by his pure genius of observing the sky with meticulous care, was able to spot them before meteorologists even gave them a name. Yeah, this is the one. This is Jan Zieberechts, and the reason I wanted to find this one is because it's an example, a good example of someone getting the sky wrong again. I mean, it was 1690, so you can't give him too much of a hard time, but he's depicting a double rainbow here. And when you have a double rainbow, it's something you see in the sky quite a lot, but the inner bow is the brighter one, and the outer bow is the dimmer. The secondary bow is the outer bow. And so, you know, he's got his double rainbow the wrong way round, a classic mistake, and clearly not a cloud spotter or a cloud connoisseur. Sorry, Jan Zieberecht.
To study the weather, you must need to know about isobars and all sorts of technical things. But to study clouds, all you need to do is to appreciate how truly beautiful they are.
Good morning, everybody, and we've got a very special visitor today. Gavin Prettle-Pinney from the Cloud Appreciation Society has come to speak to us and help us learn a little bit more about clouds. We're very intrigued to know how clouds are formed and the different sort of ways that they might be formed, so perhaps you can tell us a bit more about that.
Do you guys like clouds? Yeah, good. Well, then we'll begin in that case.
When I came to the school here, I was asked to teach geography, and I found that part of the syllabus was weather, and I actually tweaked it so that I could actually teach my children more about clouds, because I think there's so much in the clouds. It's not just the weather, it's a lot of other things. So clouds was a perfect way of bringing all sorts of subjects, not just the geography, into the lesson.
Elephant! 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 Elephant!
So on a day like today, the sun warms the ground and the ground warms the air above it.
I wasn't well as a child, and I used to lie in bed and watch the clouds. I remember being fascinated by a marvellous photo of a towering thundercloud and practicing the name, cumulonimbus. Cumulonimbus. The name and the mood seemed to match. Cumulonimbus. Cumulonimbus.
This is my cloud number 3.
It's the big one, the granddaddy. The cumulonimbus is the most fierce and fearsome of all the clouds. Whenever there's a cumulonimbus around, you know that it's not going to be a boring day.
Simply put, the cumulonimbus is a cloud out of control. So it might come as a surprise that it starts life as a humble cumulus. As it grows, massive currents of warm, moist air are drawn up its center. And as this cools, it condenses, releasing even more heat, causing it to build higher and higher. While its base can be as low as 2,000 feet, it can reach up as high as 10 miles, making it the tallest of all the clouds.
These are cumulonimbus clouds. You can see how up at the top they're spreading out in the anvil shape. Cumulonimbus incus, Latin for an anvil. And you've got dark masses down at the bottom, where the base of the cloud is where the precipitation is coming down, and you've got showers, sudden but heavy showers, no doubt, down below. But up at the top, it's a much more serene affair. The top of the cloud is glaciated, it's spreading out in an anvil shape, unable to rise any higher because it's reached the part of the atmosphere where the temperature changes, and it acts as a sort of glass ceiling or an invisible ceiling to the growth of the cloud. So you have the contrast from a distance. You have the contrast between the dark, brooding base and the light, fluffy, spreading anvil of a cumulonimbus cloud.
But beneath its calm exterior lies a maelstrom. And it's the clashing turbulence inside that generates the electrical power that is at once terrifying and exhilarating. It's estimated that the average cumulonimbus contains the energy of 10 atom bombs.
A thundercloud is a cumulonimbus cloud which has very high vertical extent and therefore has quite a long lifetime. So this allows the particles to grow to quite large sizes, a few millimeters and so on and larger, which means that they're going to fall relative to other smaller particles which are still being carried up in the updraft. So you get collisions between two different types of particles that have had different histories, and therefore their surface properties are different. Well, the individual particles, having separated their charges, usually carry positive charge to the top of a thunderstorm, and negative charge is carried down on the hailstones as they fall, relative to the ice crystals which are carried up in the updraft. So given enough of these interactions and separations, then a large enough voltage develops between the positive and the negative layers for there to be a lightning discharge. When a lightning stroke is occurring, there is local heating, and it heats the local environment to 30,000 degrees Celsius, and therefore causes a rapid expansion. And it's this rapid expansion which is creating the noise of thunder. Well, if you're out hiking and you feel this tingling and your hair stands up, then it probably means there's going to be a lightning stroke very nearby, and that you should minimize your exposure to it.
But it's not just on the ground that a cumulonimbus can wreak havoc. If you're a pilot, you're well advised to take a wide berth. The least of your problems is the lightning taking out your electrics, or being pelted with hailstones the size of tennis balls, or even your wings caking over with ice, dangerously affecting the aerodynamics. No, the real problem is with those mighty updrafts. They can cause even the biggest aircraft to flip over like a pancake. Few have entered the heart of a fully developed cumulonimbus and lived to tell the tale.
It's nice because from the airplane you fly around, nothing can happen. You can fly around and see it from the sides, and wow, it's really beautiful.
Cloud spotter Eva Wisniewska is proud of her collection of cumulonimbus photos, all taken from a sensible distance within the safety of a modern passenger plane. But imagine if you looked out through one of the aircraft windows as you cruised at 30,000 feet and you saw a woman, barely conscious, encaped in ice, emerging from the flat top of the cumulonimbus in temperatures below -40 degrees Celsius. She'd appear only briefly before being sucked back into the abyss of the thundercloud. Though it sounds far-fetched, it's exactly what happened to champion paraglider Eva over the skies of New South Wales, Australia, during a test flight for a major competition. And it's a miracle she's still alive.
It was the 14th of February 2007. We were about 130 or maybe 150 pilots. The sky was looking really nice, blue, but we could already see two big clouds. And when we passed, the clouds seemed to grow and to come together, which make them bigger, and a thunderstorm built. Suddenly, I got very strong lift, which sucked me into the cloud.
From the cloud base, Eva found herself soaring up into the storm at an astonishing 20 meters per second, straight into the heart of the cumulonimbus.
It was dark, black, so I couldn't see anything, I only could hear it.
Despite being surrounded by unimaginable surges of energy, the temperature was rapidly dropping with altitude, 1 degree Celsius for every 100 meters she went up. As it fell below -10, frostbite began to set in.
It was everything cold and frozen, I was shaking. You cannot imagine this temperature.
And as the air got thinner, Eva struggled to stay awake.
I was going up and there's less oxygen in the altitude, and at one moment I just get unconscious.
Dangling unconscious from her paraglider, Eva's instruments continued to log her flight. A layer of ice would have covered her body in temperatures below -40.
I woke up again, and still in the cloud. I didn't know, I couldn't even imagine how high I was. And for a short moment I went out of the cloud.
Eva was almost 10,000 meters above sea level, the cruising altitude of a jet airliner.
I was still above the cumulus. I could see the sun for a little moment, but then the glider entered the cloud again. And I was like talking to somebody, to the angels, I don't know, actually I'm not religious, but I was thinking like, please, not here, not like this.
Hurtling back to Earth at 33 meters per second, Ava somehow managed to regain control of her glider.
And when I saw it like coming out from the fog, it was really incredible feeling. I could see the Earth again.
Ava's story was a media sensation. Rescued 60 kilometers from her launch site, and with only frostbite to her legs and head, it was a miracle she didn't suffer brain damage from lack of oxygen. In total, she'd been inside the storm cloud for a staggering 90 minutes, tossed around by the rising and falling currents like a rag doll in a washing machine. Later, Ava discovered that another pilot, caught in the same cloud, died from a lightning strike.
It's curious, but I still like the clouds, and of course I respect big clouds much more. This is already cumulus congestus, and you can see on the top it's going to the sides already, and this one starts already to froze a little bit on the edge. So probably this one will grow up to a thunderstorm. So if you see something like this, you should go to land.
Clouds came close to ending Ava's life. But for a certain newlywed couple, it's what brought them together.
My knowledge and my interest and my fascination of clouds really only developed when I met Richard, because he's a bit of a cloud spotting geek, and I've always called him my little geography geek, and he took it upon himself, whether I was willing to listen or not, to tell me about clouds, weather formations, fronts, thunderclouds. And I just thought, God, this guy, there's a bit of depth to him. He's not more just about taking me for a pint of lager and some fish and chips or whatever. He wants to show me something that is important to him.
The wind certainly picked up more than from when we were sitting in our cosy little house. But up here we're with the elements. The clouds are rolling in thick and fast. There's some high level clouds. They're actually altostratus. And beneath that we've got some low level cumulus.
When you come up here, the clouds are moving so fast over your head that you just get completely caught up in nature.
If you look down the cliffs, you can see the clouds are forming. So it's a really delightful spot.
And you can see where it all starts, so there's clouds forming, and you can just see them spiralling up to become cumulus clouds, which will shortly pass over our heads.
Well, just below us, just below the cliff, it was an old quarry actually, and it's tradition that people should create with the stones whatever they wish, which is then read from above. Some are creative and some are a little bit lewd. So yeah, we're going to go off and we're going to have a little bit of fun creating something with our stones.
The International Cloud Atlas is, well, I guess it's required reading for a cloud spotter, but it's not exactly a page turner, put it that way. It's the publication that sets out the official classifications of clouds, and it's put out by the World Meteorological Organization. This edition is 1975, it's the most recent edition. And the reason for putting together a cloud atlas was so that meteorological observers around the world could ensure that they were speaking about the same things when they described the sky. So we knew that when someone observed an altocumulus castellanus over in Sweden, they were talking about the same thing as someone observing one over here. Arranging, classifying, and cataloguing is something that goes back to ancient civilizations. It's almost part of our makeup. But it wasn't until the turn of the 19th century that clouds are actually given names. So why did it take so long? Over to Dr. Richard Hamblin, member 813.
Clouds remained, up until the coming of the scientific revolution, objects at a distance. They were not really things that could be studied in any way. They weren't things that could be grasped in any way. They were up there as sort of challenges to philosophy. They were the extreme manifestation of the ungraspable. The average lifespan of a cumulus cloud in the summer is about 10 minutes. So if you were to stand watching the sky for 10 minutes, you watch the birth, life and death of this tiny vaporous civilization. And they were confounding for scientists and philosophers and artists alike, because they never stayed still, they changed their form. They were easier to be ignored.
So clouds remained nameless. Until one evening in London, December 1802, when shy pharmacist and amateur meteorologist Luke Howard brought along an essay he'd spent years preparing to read to a small science debating society.
His claim was very simple, that there were three main families of cloud, to which every other cloud form was either a transitional form or a modification of.
Luke Howard's masterstroke was to use the existing Latin system for classifying plants and animals, so terms such as genus and species would be familiar to scientists everywhere. The Latin names he gave the clouds could be used in different combinations, reflecting how clouds are never static but always in transition.
So, for example, a thin, wispy, high cirrus cloud might descend and spread out to form a cirrostratus. And so you can see the way that he's combined those two terms to produce a third term. The beauty of Luke Howard's cloud classification was it allowed you to keep track of what was happening now and also what was just about to happen. That gave meteorology a scientific basis. It made it a modern science.
The interest in Luke Howard's ideas was immediate and unprecedented. Suddenly the doors were open to a scientific understanding of clouds. The new classification of clouds also had a wider cultural impact. It inspired the Romantic poets. Wordsworth's "I wandered lonely as a cloud" is probably the best known opening line in the English language. In Germany, Goethe dedicated poems to Luke Howard's work, and Shelley's masterpiece, The Cloud, had verses themed on each of the new cloud types. And painters were able to use science to help them express themselves more accurately. Constable would refer to Luke Howard's booklet as he sketched and painted. But Constable and the Romantic poets were ultimately most fascinated by the emotional power of clouds. Constable felt the sky was the keynote and chief organ of sentiment, and this painting, more than any other, shows how he used clouds to convey his emotions. In this case, profound sadness. It was painted soon after his wife died in 1828. There's a kind of bleak mood to this painting, which is brought greatly by the sky. And you can see what he means, the chief organ of sentiment. A true cloud spotter and connoisseur of the skies indeed. As I leave the gallery, I'm met with a vast wet blanket in the sky. And it's with a heavy heart that I present to you the fourth of my selection of cloud types. Because in the time it took to go around the gallery, the cloud layer above had thickened to form a nimbostratus. The one that gives all other clouds a bad name. And it rains and rains and rains. It is a bit of a miserable cloud. Low, grey, rainy. And it's incessant rain. It goes on and on and on. And it'll give the cumulonimbus storm cloud a run for its money, because this cloud is not only very, very thick, it spreads over hundreds of square miles, and it hangs around for ages. I think it's good to make a distinction between cloud spotting and cloud appreciating. And up above us today, we've got a nimbostratus cloud. And so that's spotting it, but I wouldn't say it's really one of my favourite clouds. In fact, it is my least favourite of all the major cloud types. And it does have a very definite effect on our moods. I think if we were to stop anyone here, you would soon find out that this is their least favourite cloud.
This is just sort of nothing weather really, isn't it? It's like no good to anyone.
Does it have an effect on your mood?
Yeah, I think it's harder to be buoyant in this kind of weather.
The whole atmosphere is really dingy, it's dark, and you know, your mood kind of goes along with that.
It's a bit like smog, really. Downs everyone's mood, everyone looks really unhappy.
It sort of hangs around a little bit like, well, a little bit like a kind of unwanted guest at a party. But hey, I guess I should consider myself fortunate. There are some cloud spotters who'd give their eye teeth to be stood beneath a nimbostratus.
This is for the Northern Hemisphere. That'll be better. Well, I was born in Australia and I didn't see a cloud till I was 4 years old because it was a big drought, and I went outside to look at the clouds and I got hit in the forehead by some raindrops and I fainted. Well, I had to throw 2 buckets of dust on me to bring me around. Well, oh, hang on. Right, cumulus. Right, in Cairns. I'll be there. Oh, look, I've got to go, I'm sorry. It's only 800 miles, I'll be there tomorrow.
It never rains, but it snows. It's surprising to know that almost all rain in temperate climates starts off as snow as it leaves the cloud, even in the summer. If it's warm enough, the snowflakes melt into raindrops as they fall to the ground. And all it takes for the cloud to start precipitating is a few ice crystals, which will form when the temperature is low enough. This in turn starts a chain reaction as the crystals grow, break up and stick to other water droplets, causing them to freeze too. Now supposedly there's a great way of demonstrating this, turning a whole cloud into ice crystals, even snow. That's if I can get it to work. It sounds simple enough though. All I need is a fire extinguisher a carbon dioxide one. Then I'll need to wait for the right conditions, a really cold ground level stratus, commonly known as fog. I just need to be patient, that's all. Right, so it's foggy and it's -3 degrees, so I figure that's got to be the perfect conditions for it. And I've got my fire extinguisher here ready, so I'm going to give it a go. Let's see what happens. I've spoken to a few meteorologists who reckon it can be done, but I don't know anyone who's actually turned fog into snow. Are there any signs of freezing? I don't think that's working. With these floodlights, I mean, you'd be able to see if they were, if it was crystals rather than droplets, ice crystals, and I can see that they are droplets, and they're not ice crystals. So it's been an unqualified failure. Or has it? Maybe these are sparkling slightly. Maybe there is something a little bit twinkly about these fog particles. I think they are. I think they might have frozen. It's not falling as snow, but it's certainly sparkly. Look, I'll see if you can get a closer look. They're definitely sparkling like ice crystals. They've got to be ice crystals, haven't they? Not in my breath. My breath is just normally foggy. But they're definitely the sparkle of crystals. Beautiful. The frozen particles of carbon dioxide I sprayed into the fog certainly seem to have triggered the formation of ice crystals right through the cloud. They're not snowflakes though, which is when the tiny ice crystals stick together, but it's impressive all the same. In nature, this type of fog cloud is most common in the polar regions, and it's beautifully named diamond dust. And now the fog's gone. Well, I think it was going anywhere. I think it was clearing anyway, but all that's left is just a few sparkles up in the sky. You can see them kind of glinting. No, I can't suppose that the fog went because of doing this. That can't be the case. But the fog has definitely cleared and there are sparkles, crystals of ice in the sky, so I guess that's a success. And it's these tiny ice crystals that also make up my fifth and favourite of all the cloud types, the cirrus. So beautiful is this cloud that I gave Cirrus as my daughter's middle name. In Norse mythology, the fine threads were spun by the goddess of the atmosphere.
They're not only the highest, but the fastest moving of the common clouds, because up there in the atmosphere, the winds are travelling so fast.
You'd never think it, but like the nimbostratus, it's actually a precipitating cloud. Those distinctive and elegant streaks are in fact falling ice crystals.
And as those ice crystals descend, they fall through different layers of the atmosphere. And in each layer they can speed up or slow down, which is why they take on this beautiful, translucent, streaked appearance.
But they melt and evaporate long before they reach the ground. Be warned though, if you see them spread and join, it could be a sign that there'll be rain in a day or so.
So I've got to talk. My name's Louise. I live in the Great Victoria Desert in Western Australia. This is Carleen and Mr. Grant.
Same thing.
We've got a lot of different sort of clouds out here. The old people can read the clouds and they can see whether there's going to be rain or not. These clouds here. What's the Pitjantjatjara word for cloud?
Angali.
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 Yankali is the
Yeah.
Pitjantjatjara word for cloud.
Yeah.
But this, what's the name of that one there? Yeah.
Ngangali that one day? Ngangali wanga. Ngangali.
Yeah.
Ngangali wanga ma.
No, any rain in those clouds?
No.
No rain in those clouds. That's just what?
Coming. No.
Oh, the rain might come later.
Yeah, but this gone that way.
Yeah. Which way? Which way they
I
going?
don't know, but come this way.
Oh, okay. Going south.
My cherished collection of cloud atlases clearly shows how Luke Howard's system of cloud classification has stood the test of time. But since its enthusiastic reception in 1802, it's grown and evolved. New species and varieties of cloud have been added to his original list, particularly in the first half of the 20th century, as meteorologists continued to observe and develop their understanding of the atmosphere. But for some reason, there hasn't been a new classification of cloud since 1953. For example, the pyrocumulus, the cloud which forms over the rising hot air from fires, has no official classification. Or the contrail, the lines of ice particles left behind by jet planes flying through clear, cold and humid air. And I'm curious as to whether now things have stopped changing. Do we no longer see a new cloud formation and decide that it's one worthy of a classification? Is the book closed on coming up with new classifications for clouds? In 2006, I received some photos from a chap called Don Sanderson, living in Iowa in the States. He said, I just thought I'd send you these weird clouds that we saw over our town, and they're just not the sort of clouds we normally see here. We're not near to mountains, and they were very, very dramatic and unusual, and they got on the local news.
Well, I thought I was going to see alien spaceships come down through the clouds.
Some say it looked like a scene from the movie Independence Day. Others had more down-to-earth descriptions.
It almost reminded me of ocean waves rolling in.
I thought it looked like the nice frothy cream on a latte.
In case you missed all the excitement this morning, these clouds were the talk of the town. This nameless weather phenomenon drew people outdoors.
My sister ran and woke me up and said I had to come outside and see the clouds.
And most enjoyed Mother Nature's free entertainment.
Yeah, just making sure Independence Day wasn't happening again.
Don't worry, sci-fi fans. Meteorologists say it's not the end of the world.
The local weathermen said they weren't really sure what this cloud was would be called. And it was sort of in the back of my mind, and then I started getting other photographs sent in from members around the world. These clouds seem to form when a cloud layer in very stable air is subjected to the kind of intense atmospheric waves that you might find around mountainous regions. And every now and then one of these would jump out at me as being, oh, there's another example of that weird cloud. But then, as more and more of these things have come in, it strikes me that there's no real existing classification that they neatly fit within. They're a little bit like an undulatus cloud, which means wave-like. It's from the Latin for undula, wave. But they're less regular than you tend to see in undulatus cloud. And it's also a little bit, has some appearance that's a bit like a lenticularis cloud. They're rather smooth, globby, usually in the shape of a sort of lens or an almond. Then there's also a little bit of the mumma cloud to them, which is a particularly dramatic cloud formation that has these kind of pouches after the Latin for udders. Really kind of can be look quite extraordinary, that cloud type. And this formation has a bit of all three of those in my mind. And I thought, well, maybe if it doesn't fit into the existing cloud classifications, does that mean that we just can't have a name for this cloud? Or is there an argument to say that we should add a new classification? And so I've decided the best thing is to prepare my case, to prepare the argument as to why this should be a new classification. What I'm hoping is that I can persuade a group of meteorologists to get together and basically hear my case for this as a new classification. But I don't know, there's a potential that I kind of might stand up in front of these learned meteorologists and just look like a bit of a fool. If I get it wrong, I could look like a bit of a fool. I mean, if they say, what do you mean, that's so obviously a so-and-so cloud, then it'll all be a bit embarrassing. I've even given the new cloud a name, Asperatus, Latin for roughened up. I'm sending the idea to the renowned Royal Meteorological Society. I don't know whether they'll invite me to talk further about the cloud, but I suppose that's up to fate and the gods.
There are a whole number of different reasons why people might contemplate the clouds, perhaps because they're landscape artists or because they're glider pilots. But the cloud spotter I'm going to meet now, Craig Hamilton Parker, contemplates them for an entirely different reason. That's because he's a cloud psychic. Craig.
Hi, Gavin. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. How are you doing?
Not bad.
Good.
Yeah, you're doing all right too. Well, I should know that, being a psychic, shouldn't I?
So what is it that you do exactly with clouds?
Yeah, well, it's called aeromancy. you know. And so mancies are sort of like divinations. You can get geomancy, reading the earth. I know a friend that reads dirty plates and interprets it, reading like from the dirty stains on the plate, you know. So we can read anything like that. But I think clouds are just such a beautiful, ephemeral, effulgent sort of thing that they just lend themselves to some form of heavenly, spiritual type of exploration. I mean, Elvis Presley, you know, I believe he looked at the clouds and actually foresaw his own death. He saw some horrible picture in the clouds and got quite upset about it.
I'm keen for Craig to read my fortune.
How does it work then, practically, if we're going to do this? Are you asking me to see shapes, or are you seeing shapes?
I'll have a look and see. If I can see, have a look at the clouds that we've got around. We've got some of those nice, I guess they're cumulus clouds. Some of the pictures I kind of feel they're like motherly faces. They look like happy mum looks to them. So could I say that you're a person that's has always been through your life very close to mum?
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
And I would say very protective to anything connected with family.
Talking of family, we're going to, we've got another child on the way.
Oh, right. So
are you getting a boy or a girl feel?
You got two already?
I've got one already, I've got a girl.
I've got a feeling it's going to be another girl.
Really? And then another question I had, do you do this in terms of questions, or is it,
yeah,
should I just sit here
because obviously what you can do is, you can say a question and then, of course, my unconscious will project it. It's a way of connecting to the intuitive unconscious.
You know, I'm thinking of presenting to some eminent meteorologists that we should come up with a new a new categorization of cloud. There's a type of cloud which looks like you're underwater and you've got the waves of the surface of the water that you're looking up at. And there's no Latin or other name for this type of cloud, but I might be laughed out of the room before we get there.
No, I think it's worth putting this forward. Yeah, I think you can see you've seen a hole in the clouds, as it were, that needs patching up.
But before you can say James Randi, Craig spots a cloud that seems to sum it all up.
I see a sort of like a Mickey Mouse sort of laughing sort of face.
Right, yeah,
you know?
yeah.
That face looks like it's someone being mocked. And I think you have a fear of people not taking you seriously. You've walked into the academic world and they look at you as, who's this guy? You know? And you've got to get over this fear of people not taking you seriously. I think you've got to just be a lot more upfront about what you do. You know, you're as big an expert as anybody else, you know, and that's the way I think you've got to storm the world and take the future by hand. And that's what I think the clouds are saying to us today, you know. Say what you believe in, and don't worry about what the academics keep sort of saying, that it should be this or that.
So the clouds are saying, be bold with your love of clouds.
Be bold with your love of clouds, yeah.
Be bold with my love of clouds, I like that. And whether or not you believe that the clouds can be the messengers of one's fortune, at the end of the day, it's just another way of appreciating them, another way to be inspired by the sky.
Hello, my name is John Pena. I'm 27 years old and I currently live in Cali, Colombia in South America. And so I thought I would begin by showing a video I made of me racing a cloud. And so I was really interested in this idea of competing with something that not only has no idea we're competing, but that has no reason to ever compete with a human. And in a world where there's so much division, it's really refreshing to be reminded that these are some things we share in common, genetically ingrained into our bodies, into our retina, this blue sky, the landscape, and clouds.
Well, guess what? I've been invited by the Royal Meteorological Society to give a talk to a panel of experts about my proposal for a new classification of cloud.
I'm a bit nervous, actually. The Royal Meteorological Society is one of the most respected meteorological societies in the world, and I've come with my little portfolio of members' photographs of this type of cloud to present to a panel of meteorologists and persuade them that it should be a new classification. There's not a cloud in the sky today, which I'm hoping is not a bad sign. I'm feeling like a bit, as I say, a bit nervous about it. I hope I'm not going to make a fool of myself.
Yes. Professor Hardacre will see you now.
Great, thank you.
Back to upstairs.
So I thought, well, let me just explain what this is about, maybe. You know, I've got the Cloud Appreciation Society, and people send in photographs from all around the world of clouds that they like, I noticed a few years ago there were one or two cloud types that I was having some difficulty classifying. That were like that. Were these ones from Cedar Rapids in Iowa in the States? And I was looking at it and I was thinking, what type of cloud is this? Here's another one, a very kind of choppy, mixed way in which the undulations are appearing.
Do we know the dates that they were taken, Gary?
Yeah, they seem to be mid to late summer.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then I saw some from New Zealand.
Gosh, wow, that's pretty dramatic.
I know. It's one that exists at different levels, and I would have said it would be a variety that would exist at stratocumulus and altocumulus levels.
I'd like to see some independent corroboration of the pictures from two observers' standpoint.
I got this photograph from several different people sending it in. And then these ones in New Zealand, that was sent in by two independent people, looking very, very similar sort of time of day, and they both
so
must
we've
have
got
had
some independent corroboration.
Got two independent people photographing that, and many independent people photographing that one.
I would like to see a bit more information about when and where the pictures were taken, so that we can actually start to study the meteorological situation and to get an idea of what's happening in the atmosphere to create some of these spectacular clouds. And
yeah, I'd like to see more evidence of the synoptic situation at the time. So that's what the setup of the atmosphere was like at that particular time. Was it warm? Was it cold?
I think it's certainly worth an opportunity to see if we can take this forward.
There seems to be something. There seems to be something there.
Yeah. The World Meteorological Organization nowadays is the place to go for new classifications to be recognised. If we're going to make a case, we're going to have to put a bit more about the meteorology, the weather conditions that were happening when these pictures were taken, which we can help you with. So I think together we got the basis of a case that we can take forward, and we'd be really happy to help.
Let's push it forward and see if we can just nudge open that gate of the World Meteorological Organization, and let's see how they respond.
I don't think that could have gone better, actually. That was great. They were very, very positive about the whole idea of a new variety of cloud, and so I'm going to get some details together and we can take it forward by the sounds of it. Today the Royal Meteorological Society, tomorrow the World Meteorological Organisation.
But before I get too carried away, it's important to remind myself what it means to be a cloud spotter. It's something that doesn't need a big fanfare. It's about stopping and taking a breather from whatever it is you're doing and looking up. It's an important part of my everyday life, because having my head in the clouds, ironically, is a grounding experience.
Hi, my name is Donna Levinstone and I am an artist living in New York City. I painted this drawing using pastels. It's called September 11th, 2001. Rather than a portrait of the Twin Towers, it's really a very emotional piece that represents the cloud, which really became more of a peaceful resting place for thousands of people that vanished on 9/11. It was a natural thing for me to do this drawing because clouds were something that's been a very important part of my work for 20 years. And unfortunately, even though this was a result of such a disaster, I actually found some beauty in the cloud that really provided a peaceful home for these people.
We can make the clouds are our friends and our ambassadors of love, peace and friendship, because they passes nations, they passes oceans, they passes continents without any borders. So we can make the clouds our best friends.
The Manifesto of the Cloud Appreciation Society asks you to look up, marvel at the ephemeral beauty, and live life with your head in the clouds. A philosophy inspired by Shelley's poem, The Cloud.
I am the daughter of earth and water, and the nursling of the sky. I pass through the pores of the ocean and shores. I change, but I cannot die. For after the rain, when with never a stain the pavilion of heaven is bare, and the winds and sunbeams with their convex gleams build up the blue dome of air, I silently laugh at my own cenotaph, and out of the caverns of rain, like a child from the womb, like a ghost from the tomb, I arise and unbuild it again.
And when it would rain, it would all turn. They were beautiful, the most beautiful skies.
Tomorrow here on BBC HD we dive into the crystal clear waters of the South Pacific as our stunning new series continues. That's here at 8. But coming up tonight there's comedy with Not Going Out.
You don't see that